Welcome back. And now we will check out stories from Bangladesh, where Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina pleaded for quick release of International Climate Fund as promised. Hasina also sought UNDP support to cope with climate change-induced poverty and migration in the country. She even listed her government's various programs for socio-economic development and added that all efforts of the government were being adversely affected by impacts of climate change, although the country's share of carbon gas emission is negligible. Bangladesh and Turkey moreover renewed pledges to work closely in different international forums. It was done so as to maintain world peace and security as well as combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. During a bilateral meeting with the visiting Turkish Prime Minister, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina also sought the Turkish support to Bangladesh's candidature as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for the term 2016-17. On the outcome of the talks, Hasina also added that both Bangladesh and Turkey had agreed to increase bilateral trade volume to at least $3 billion by 2015. Last week, the main opposition BNP also observed a dawn to dusk hartal that disrupted normal life across the country and caused sufferings to homebound people ahead of the Eid al-Azha. Clashes between law enforcers and opposition supporters at different places in the country left around 300 people injured. Police arrested around 150 persons, including 60 individuals in the capital. The party enforced the hartal to protest the eviction of its chairperson, Khaleda Zia, from her cantonment house. We will now check out stories from Nepal, where last week the top leaders of the major three political parties agreed to postpone the 17th round of election for the post of Prime Minister. During the third round of decisive talks to sort out the contentious issues in peace process, constitution drafting and government formation at Gokarna Forest Resort, the top leaders decided to defer the Prime Minister election. The leaders also reached a tentative agreement to bring budget after holding further discussions on the issue. Now UCP and Maoists, Nepali Congress and UML also held their fourth round of talks last week. They held their first round of talks at Hattiban Resort and the next two at Gokarna Forest Resorts. Reportedly, the four options deliberated in the meet were a unity government led by UCP and Maoists, a majority government without UCP and Maoist support, a unity government with rotational leadership and a presidium system. However, most leaders were in favor of a rotational system of government in the Himalayan nation. And in a positive step, the Council of Ministers endorsed the decision of the major three parties to introduce a full-scale budget in the Parliament. After a cabinet meeting held at the Prime Minister's residence, Information Minister and Government spokesperson Shankar Pokharel reportedly said that a clause would be added to the Article 96 of the Constitution which will do away with difficulties the caretaker government is having in presenting a full budget. It was decided that Finance Minister Surendra Pandey will be presenting a full-fledged budget at the Legislature Parliament. But at the end of the week, President Ram Baran Yadav adjourned the budget session of the Legislature Parliament after the Council of Ministers recommended the President to end the budget session after UCP and Maoist lawmakers prevented Finance Minister Surendra Pandey from presenting the budget at the House. The government then planned to introduce the budget for fiscal year 2010-2011 through an ordinance. It has also been reported last week that India's External Affairs Minister S.M. Krishna is scheduled to visit Sri Lanka on an official tour from November 25th to November 27th. During his visit, Krishna is expected to tour the conflict-affected north to observe the progress of the resettlement of displaced Tamil people and hold discussions on the utilization of Indian grants. The Indian government has reportedly emphasized the need to assist Sri Lanka's conflict-affected people beyond rehabilitation, and he is also expected to hold discussions with the Lankan president for a political solution to the ethnic conflict. Now our friends from News First will give us a weekly roundup of all that has happened in the island nation.
Hello Southasia and welcome to the week gone by from Sri Lanka. On Monday, President Mahinda Rajapaksa said that it is his responsibility to produce a generation that treasures the environment and the country. The head of state pointed out that an environmentally friendly world should be created in order to overcome the challenges posed by global warming. The President made these comments during the inaugural Daita Sevana National Tree Planting Program held in Colombo.
The Daita Sevana National Tree Planting Program took place in Colombo today in lieu of the President being sworn in for the second term in office later this week. The program, aimed at planting 1.1 million saplings in 11 minutes across the island, was the first in a series of events which will be held to mark the special occasion. The inaugural ceremony in this regard took place at the President's house under the patronage of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Subsequent to religious observances, President Mahinda Rajapaksa planted the first sapling at the auspicious time of 10:07 am. We are living in a liberated country. If we can freely take in a breath of fresh air, then that is a resource we have at a time we are taking a joint leap forward with this economy to develop the country. Therefore, on one hand, it is not incorrect to say that we are engaging in a task to infuse life into the country. Not just today, we have historically been an environmentally friendly nation. If a villager cuts a tree to make a house, we know that a Buddhist priest would first worship that tree. If a tree is felled, another is planted in its place. But instead of worshipping trees today, people wait in anticipation for these trees to grow in order to fell them. Therefore, these sentiments need to change.
On Tuesday, the Supreme Court suspended the Court of Appeal from issuing an interim order on whether Sarath Fonseca can attend parliamentary sittings. Sarath Fonseca had sought interim relief in the form of attending parliamentary sittings, while the Court of Appeal heard the petition filed by him on his parliamentary seat being vacated. The decision on interim relief was to be delivered on Thursday.
A 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court began hearing the case on whether the court-martial which sentenced Sarath Fonseca has been established in accordance with the Constitution. President's counsel Romesh De Silva, appearing on behalf of former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca, said that the Supreme Court registrar had informed him over the telephone last evening to appear before court today. At this point, the attorney had requested that as the Supreme Court case on the interpretation and the Court of Appeal petition are both being heard simultaneously, the Supreme Court case be postponed and the Court of Appeal be allowed to deliver its verdict. However, the court did not grant its permission for this. Attorney General President's Counsel Mohan Piris said that the question of Sarath Fonseca's parliamentary seat rests on whether the court-martial was established constitutionally. The AG also said that all activities of the Court of Appeal must be suspended until the Supreme Court delivers its verdict. The Court of Appeal postponed hearing the petition until the 6th of December. We condemn corrupt politicians suppressing the people. In the interest of the people's advancement and their freedom, the countrymen, the armed forces and the police must abstain from engaging in illegal acts. The hope that he will be allowed to go to Parliament has been suspended by the decision delivered by the Supreme Court. We look forward to the decision of the Supreme Court in a neutral manner. Just as we do, the people of this country hope that Sarath Fonseca will be allowed to go to Parliament.
Our freedoms are being taken away slowly. I went to Katharagama to fulfill a vow that I had undertaken. There were 3 of our vehicles. On our way back to Colombo, they were stopped at 4 places and searched. When the orders come from higher up, the police officers have to do it. There are people who enjoy this. That is why we are constantly harassed.
Even though the petition filed by Sarath Fonseca against the second court-martial was to be held today, it was put off until the 26th of November. Meanwhile, the case pertaining to the white flag incident was also called before a trial at bar, and Major General Shavindra Silva gave evidence before it for a second day. The then commanding officer of the 58th Brigade, Shavindra Silva, said that neither the Defence Secretary or the Ministry had ordered him to shoot any person who came and surrendered to the army during the latter part of the war. Responding to a question raised by Deputy Solicitor General Vasantha Navaratna Bandara, he said that LTT leaders Ramesh, Nadesan and Pulidevan were killed in retaliatory fire. He also said that the world was aware that Sri Lanka had the most skilled and disciplined army in the world. Major General Shavindra Silva added that Sarath Fonseca was a commander of this army. I would like to very cordially point out that as a disciplined officer, I will refrain from saying anything over the media until the court concludes hearing this case.